Welcome to the second episode of our three-part series, The Art of Cold to Close. And we're going to be talking about cold call conversions made easy. We're also going to talk about emails as well and how you can do that. Now, as you all are trickling into this session, let us know where you're tuning in from. And if you got to see the last Masterclass episode, let us know what your biggest takeaway was, because we're going to be using some things that you heard about on LinkedIn in this episode today. So stay tuned for that. I have a question for you all. Yes, starting off with a question this time. On a scale of 1 to 5, you can put this in the chat or you can think about this out loud. What would you rate yourself in terms of cold calling plus cold emailing? So 1 to 5. 1 being, I just started, I'm not the best. 5 meaning, I'm elite at this, I am fantastic. So let us know in the chat. At the end of this, we're gonna make sure that you have at least a 0.5 increase and you feel more confident in what you're doing. Now, these are the 5 different portions that you're gonna learn throughout this episode. Number 1 is, how do you prepare for your cold call? Number 2 is, how do you make the cold call so that it converts? Number 3 is, what is your email framework? Number 4 is, how do you handle those objections when you're reaching out cold? And number 5 is, how do you make sure you ask great questions in your conversations? And then we'll open it up for Q&A. Now, let's go into portion number 1, how to prepare for your cold call. Now, before you make the call, I believe you should have a routine to prepare yourself so you're confident in your approach. So one of the key things that you want to do here is get yourself pumped up. Now, that doesn't mean you need to go out on a run and go do something crazy. All you need to do here is find songs or a playlist that you really like. So for me personally, this is me personally, you don't have to follow my path. I love the song In the Club by 50 Cent. When I hear this song, I'm ready to make cold calls. I'm ready to get after it. Now, again, you may choose a completely different song than from me, but I really like 50 Cent, and so I like to dive into that. So you figure out what your pace is and get yourself excited. The reason for this, by the way, is psychologically, when you play a song and you map it or correlate it towards a task, it gets you mentally more prepared for that task. So that's why certain songs, I play them before I do certain things, like cold calling, for example. So I'm getting myself in a cold calling mindset. So if you're a rep listening in today, find your song. If you're a leader listening in today, get your team to find their songs. And that's how you're gonna put yourself in the right motion. So now that we have the song in order, the next step that you wanna take is getting in the right environment to make the call. So do you like to stand up? Do you like to sit down? Do you need to be outside? These are different things that you have to decipher to figure out what's best for you. And once you find out what's best for you, that's gonna allow you to have a better conversation across the board. Prepping yourself, getting yourself mentally ready. I also recommend as well, if people are around you, to do some mock cold calling with your team. Getting yourself prepared for your voice and also get your team prepared for that as well. I know we're in a hybrid environment. We've also found this to be really helpful in virtual settings too. And that's a great way to go about it. Now that you feel more confident, you got the juices flowing, and now we're more excited, the other thing that you need to be looking at is understanding who are your buyer personas. So you should be doing this research before you even get on a cold call, to the point where this becomes something you already know. So there should be 3 to 5 buyer personas that you typically go after in each organization. Obviously, sometimes it changes, but that's the normal standard. So you might be looking at, okay, I go after a VP of IT director, CISO, data scientist, and let's say an IT analyst. So you should have an understanding of what are their challenges and priorities going into the call, so you can speak the same language as them and you don't have to figure out, what does this person do? What are they about? You already have a baseline. However, there are certain accounts that we like to call the tier 1 accounts or tier A accounts that we're trying to get in front of, where we need a little bit more personalization. And so before you make these calls, you should be doing some type of research. Now, that doesn't mean you should be doing research and doing calls. That's too much task switching. Pick a day, pick a time, maybe it's for an hour. Look at the accounts you're gonna call, do some research, so now you're prepared to make that call moving forward. So now that we prepped accordingly, we're good to go, we're confident, let's go make some calls. So now we're gonna go to portion 2. And I like to call this framework for cold calling the Fisherman Framework. The thing is, when it comes to fishing, it's directly correlated to cold calling. So I'm not the greatest fisherman of all time. I'm not, but I do enjoy it from time to time. And when you go out there and you throw out your cast, you have to wait. You put the bait on there, you have to wait for the fish to obviously try to get that bait. Now what happens is when the fish finally bites on the bait, you have to reel that in. However, if you're not prepared, you're gonna lose the fish, you could fall over on the boat, right? And you put yourself in a really bad spot. So you gotta be prepared to actually reel this in. So one of the key elements is preparing yourself for the reel in so you don't look foolish and lose that fish, or again, like I said, you completely fall over. That's the same thing that happens with cold calling. That everyone here, if you've made a cold call before, or you have a team that you're coaching on cold calling, you probably run into this, where you were making 30, 40 calls, you finally got the potential buyer on the line, and then you realize, oh shoot, I'm not prepared for this. And then you say a whole bunch of things that don't make any sense because you weren't prepared, and the prospect is disengaged. So with this framework, this allows you to reel in potential clients to schedule meetings that are value-driven and not just, I don't know what I'm saying, I don't know what's going on. So how this framework works is there's the pattern interrupt, the hook, the value prop, handling objections, close. And if they don't answer, then there's a voicemail. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna break down this framework from beginning to end to the close, and then we're also gonna talk about if they don't respond to your call, then we can do a voicemail. So the most important component of a cold call is the pattern interrupt, which is your first about 3 to 6 seconds of your call. Every single person listening in, you need to know what your intro pattern interrupt is. Otherwise, people are going to ignore you or they're gonna hang up on you and they're not gonna have this conversation. So there's a different variants of pattern interrupts that you can do. I'm gonna give you all 2 that you can use immediately after this conversation today that other clients have found successful that have led to 2x conversion rates on what they do. However, take my framework that I'm giving you and think about how you can implement it yourself. So the very first one that I want to talk about is you don't know me, I don't know you, and going into it. So there are 2 things that happen when someone answers a cold call. One, they're asking themselves, who are you? The second thing they're asking themselves is, what do you want? So in my intro, I'd be like, hi, Sally. I don't know you, you don't know me, but the reason for my call is, and you go into it. That's a pattern interrupt because they're now not thinking about those 2 things and they're saying, oh, you have a reason for the call? Let me hear you. And now you can go deeper into that. Now, the next stage of that, right, is my favorite introduction, which is the PLA. So we have one stage, which is like super brief. You don't know me, I don't know you, go into it. The second intro that I have, or the pattern interrupt, is called the PLA, pleasant, laughing, arms up. And this is what we like to call a permission-based opener. So let me explain exactly what this one is so you all can use it and leverage it and maybe share it with your teams and try something different. So again, let's call Sally. We're blowing Sally up a lot today, so we'll keep calling her. So we'll call Sally. Hi, Sally. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, look, I know I'm calling out the blue here. However, do you have a few moments to chat? Now, let's rewind and talk about why this works. So the first part is pleasant. Hi, Sally, thanks for taking my call. After analyzing thousands of calls, we realize when someone says, thanks for taking my call, it interrupts our pattern because that's not something that people typically hear. They don't typically hear, oh, thanks for taking my call. So now they're gonna lean in a little bit more to say, what's this person about? The second portion is the laugh. So this is something that you need to practice, right? I said, hey, I know I'm gonna catch you out the blue here. That creates levity in the conversation. So now it's lighter for this person to hear what you have to say. Please do not, if you're watching this today, sound like Kawhi Leonard and be like, oh, no, I'm calling you out the blue, right? We don't wanna do that, all right? That's gonna lead to disconnects. So if you laugh like that, you didn't hear that from me, right? You wanna do a little bit of chuckle, practice this in the mirror, and that will put you in a really good spot, right? And then the next stage of this, right, is the, however, do you have a few moments to chat? I put my arms up because when you do that, body language makes you seem not as assertive, not as aggressive. It makes it seem like, hey, all is good. Let's just have a conversation. That allows for the person to be more open with you to now be like, hey, you know what? Like, I might have a couple minutes here. Now, last bit here is I said moments. And the reason I say moments is because that is ambiguous and that could mean 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a couple seconds, whatever. But if someone does say no, and this could happen to you, right, to be transparent, we could still schedule a meeting here. So I'll say, hey, look, I know you're completely busy right now. However, all I'm asking for is 30 seconds of your time. And in that 30 seconds, I'll explain to you exactly what we do here at Calendly. And look, if that's not applicable, it's okay to hang up on me. Does that sound fair? That works really well because when you say, does that sound fair? People at the end of the day are 100% okay with that because they're like, oh, that's fair. That's not anything crazy. And you can go from that standpoint. Now, one of the greatest things is once you do get past this introduction, then you're going to get into some type of hook. So your hook would be like something you found maybe on the website. Hey, notice this on your website. Notice this on LinkedIn. Or I've been talking to a lot of VPs of sales and here's something that we're hearing a lot right now. So you want to use that hook to bring them in, either persona-based, like I just mentioned. I've been talking to your persona. I've been hearing these things about your market. And then the personalization is website, LinkedIn, et cetera. So you can do that differentiate. The value prop, grab from the email, put in there, hey, we've been working with a lot of VPs of sales, and one thing they're telling us is to get better at their cold calling frameworks to increase their conversions. Is that something on your radar right now? Or is that something that your team's currently discussing, right? So that value prop, you're bringing them in. You'll have objections, which we'll talk about how to handle that here on one of the other portions, and then you can close the call. Once you close a call, this is a very, 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 very important tip. Everybody needs to write this one down, is making sure to get them to agree to the calendar invite on the call itself. Hey, Sally, before you hang up the phone, could you please accept the calendar invite? I want to make sure that this doesn't go to spam. And so one of the best ways to make sure that you're not scrambling with your calendar is you can also use Calendly's real-time scheduling app. So you can use it right there. It integrates with your calendar. You can look and see what's going on. So you're not on your calendar being frantic. And it's a good way to schedule meetings right there. Also a good way to schedule meetings if you need other colleagues on the call, if you're an SDR handing off to an account executive. So just another simple way to do this without it being overwhelming. I wish, honestly, I had this when I was a rep, and now you can put yourself in a really good spot. Now, those are two introductions. We just walked through the Fisherman Framework. Now you're reeling prospects in, but what if they don't answer the phone? This could happen. So if they don't answer the phone, we're gonna do a voicemail, and this voicemail is one of my favorite things I like to share with people on how to increase your conversion rates on email and also increase the number of callbacks that you get. Because when you do a voicemail, if I were to ask you all right now, how many callbacks would you have? It'd probably be like 2 to 5. It normally isn't a lot for people. And I've done this training and I've done this sales kickoffs, and I always get that 2 to 5 answer. Sometimes we got outliers and people doing 100 where it's like, hey, maybe you should be doing this training, not me. But 2 to 5 is typically the cadence of what I see. So in order for you to get more responses, you need to say something like this. Hi, Sally. The reason for my voicemail is we've been speaking to a lot of VPs of sales, and one of their main things that they're focusing on right now is how to increase their cold call conversions. And we have a framework that we've been implementing into teams that has led to a 2x conversion rate. And I thought that might be something on your radar. Look, there's no need to call me back. I'll send you an email here in the next 5 minutes. The subject line will be cold calling framework. And if you want to reply, you can do it there. My name is Morgan Ingram from Calendly. Once again, my name is Morgan Ingram from Calendly. So now that we've got that sorted, now it'll be really easy, right, moving forward for them to reply, because I said there's no need to call me back. There's no friction. They're not worried about it. They don't feel pressure like a normal sales rep would give them. This actually makes it very simple for them to be like, oh, okay, like if I'm interested, they'll look at the transcript of the voicemail and they can go look at the email to respond from there, which then leads into the next portion that we're going to talk about, which is the email framework. So now you're confident in your cold call introduction. You feel great on your value props, you're nailing the close, and you know exactly how to leave voicemails. Now we got to talk about how you should write your emails. So when it comes to emails, what we've seen is the highest conversion rates around 2 to 5 sentences. When you do that, it makes it more compact and concise for people to respond. Now, there are scenarios where different personas in different regions, this may be longer, but I'm just giving you the baseline data on what we've seen across the board. So when you're writing a cold outbound email, you want to think about this as the newspaper email. So when you're looking at the newspaper, the whole goal is for it to grab your attention with punchy headlines and very concise and contextual text. which is what you're doing here with the email. So let's go through the email framework and give you exactly what you should do so you can write better emails and get more responses. So the first part is what I like to call the headline, which is basically your subject line. Your subject line needs to be around 2 to 5 sentences or 2 to 5 words. And within those 2 to 5 words, 3 words typically is like the best when you want to do this. Now, I'll give you an example of a subject line that's worked extremely well for a lot of clients and coaches that we've talked to is their company name, the greater than less than sign, your company name. If you don't want to put your company name, you also could put their first name here. That greater than less than sign has worked wonders for people that we've worked with. Another one that works really well is your, and then insert whatever you're looking to talk to them about. So it could be your podcast interview, your YouTube interview, your recent post on LinkedIn. When you mention your, it's about them. People like to talk about themselves, so it leads to higher open rates. So typically on the greater than less than sign, you'll see like 35 to about 38% open rates. The your, you'll see about 30 to 35% as well. And that's like the average of what we typically see, right? So then now that we have that done, we're gonna look at the intro, which typically is your first 1 to 2 sentences. And this is where you're looking to stand out based on information you found. So you could start off with, I've been doing some research, saw your recent post. These are ways that you can stand out and immediately get to value. I also like another one as well, which is like, your peers have been leveraging us. I really like that one too, that we've seen a lot of opens on that. But you wanna make sure that those first words stand out and they aren't just generic as in, hope all is well, like hope everything's great. Like you don't wanna do that because that's what everyone else sees. And that's a quick way to get deleted, even to the point where people are actually drilling down and using this as a way to filter out to different folders. So that's what you don't want. You wanna make sure that this is like, oh yeah, this is really simple. Like it needs to be something contextual that people will see and they'll go from there. The value prop, we've talked about this a lot. You need to make sure that it speaks to the persona's pain points. You provide some type of solution to it. And if you even want to go even deeper, a case study attached to it. You won't always have a case study attached to it, and that doesn't mean you need a whole biography. It's just a sentence to say, hey, X person in our space saw this result. That's all you need to do here. Don't say like, hey, we worked with Google and then reaching out to a startup. That doesn't correlate. Make sure the people you're talking to are in the same lane so you can have better responses when you're engaging with them. That's gonna be absolutely important. And so now that we have the value prop, you're gonna have the call to action. We've mentioned this before on a previous episode in LinkedIn, but when you're doing this, all you wanna do is interest, call to actions. Would you be open to a deeper dialogue on this topic? Would this be of interest to you? These are things that you can do to get in front of your potential buyer. We don't want to ask directly for time. Yeah, we can later down in our campaigns, but for the first couple of emails, lead with interest. That's where we've seen the most success across the board. So now that we have this email framework sorted out, we have our newspaper email, we've got our cold call sorted, we're probably going to run into some objections, whether it's email or whether it's on the call, but let's talk about when it's on the call. So there's a lot of different objections that you can get, and we're not gonna go through every single one. And if you do have one though, throw it in the Q&A. We'll make sure to get it towards the end. But the real key here though is when you are facing an objection, follow this framework and it will not fail you. Pause, acknowledge, question. So when you get an objection, you wanna pause for about 1.5 seconds. Then you would acknowledge whatever the objection is. And then you want to ask a layered question to figure out what the real objection is. Most objections you get are brush offs. So we want to make sure that we can get to the real one. So let's give an example that I hear a lot. Reach out to me in 6 months. So if I were to get that on a cold call, I would say, pause. Completely understand that you might want to talk in 6 months. I know there's a lot of things going on, and I've been hearing that quite often lately. However, what's gonna happen between now and then that's preventing us from meeting today? So now what that does is give me a real answer. I then can continue to ask layering questions on top of that to figure out how I can truly get the meeting set instead of going back and forth and trying to figure out what's going on. I'm asking a direct question that I can get the real insight on, and then I can figure out, can I schedule a meeting earlier or do I need to wait for that 6 months? Now that we've handled that objection, this is a great opportunity to use Calendly's real-time scheduling app, because if you're handling objections and going back and forth, you're clearly not even looking at your calendar yet. So it's a good way to look at and say, okay, who do I need to connect with? Who do they need to go in front of? Because that objection you handled, you could maybe refer to another colleague that maybe you just don't have their calendar up for. So this real-time app helps you there. And so once you have handled that objection on the phone, an additional tip here is how to handle objections on email. I typically recommend people to do two things. One is call them if you can. When people reply to their email, there's a number in the signature that you can call and have a conversation with. Number two is you could send a video to the person because it's very hard to ignore someone once you've seen their face. So now you can go in there, they can respond, and you can have an engaging conversation there. If those two don't work, yes, you can apply via email, but I found that those two options typically are the best to get in front of the person you want to get in front of and convert the opportunity that you're ultimately looking for. So now that we've handled those objections, right? We got our email ready to go. We got our cold calling conversion. We're feeling really good going into our cold call. There's probably some questions that we need to ask because I just mentioned that earlier. Now, in terms of asking great questions, there are three different types of questions: open-ended, close-ended, and layering questions. Most of you probably know what that means, so I'm not going to explain to you every single one. But what I would recommend you to do is in your cold calls, make sure that you have go-to questions for your open-ended, close-ended, and layering questions. And these questions should get someone to be like, oh, wow, okay, like I want to dive deeper with you. That was a really good question. You want to get them to like realize that you're not like every other rep and you're uniquely different than the rest of them. So one way you can do that to stand out is to have humble disclaimers in front of your questions. So if you're like, I don't know, I don't want to ask this question, but I know it can get me good answers, I always recommend people to say, hey, I know this might be an odd question. However, ask the question. Or, hey, I know this might be completely out of the blue. However, and then ask your question. So any hard question that you're like, Morgan, I don't know if I want to ask that, it's completely okay to ask the question as long as you add a humble disclaimer in front of it and then get to the question of whatever that may be. Because on the cold calls, as you're handling objections, and remember I mentioned the pause, acknowledge, question, the PAQ here, you want to make sure you have questions that can follow up so they're willing to hear you out. If you have questions that are generic, it's not going to work. So look at what your go-to questions are. Look at practical examples of how you can get in front of somebody with those questions. So now you get the answers you're looking for that ultimately leads you to close that cold call and that opportunity. So take the time to write those down and be prepared for those calls. And ultimately, right, those are the 5 different portions of how you can convert cold opportunities better from taking a deep dive into cold calling, a couple of things you can now go test out and go execute on. And now we have the cold email portion, which now allows you to convert those opportunities better as well.